Here are the latest developments from Somalia as of November 27, 2025.
U.S. Special Forces eliminate ISIS commander in Somalia. U.S. Special Operations Troops and Puntland Counterterrorism Forces carried out a pre-dawn assault on ISIS Somalia hideouts in the Balad Valley. More than 100 American operators arrived by MH-60 helicopters with MQ-9 Reapers overhead, striking cave positions held by about 10 to 15 ISIS fighters in the Bakuje and Mariro areas of the Kal-Miskad range. PCTF pushed in with roughly 200 troops after several days of U.S. airstrikes that had already killed multiple militants. The raid triggered 2 to 4 hours of close-quarters clashes inside fortified caves, including engagements with foreign fighters from Syria, Turkey, and Ethiopia. By sunrise, U.S. and PCTF forces had withdrawn with no reported American casualties. Early results indicate a senior ISIS Somalia commander and several aides were killed, along with a total of 5 to 10 terrorists. Forces also destroyed weapons caches and equipment used for gold mining operations that funded the group. Puntland's leadership says its Operation Hilak now controls almost all of the Kal-Miskad Mountains and aims to eliminate ISIS Somalia by December 2025.
What do the Somalians have to do with this Afghan guy who shot the national?
Nothing, but Somalians have caused a lot of trouble. They're ripping us off for a lot of money. There's a tremendous amount of money going back to Somalia. What the hell are we paying money to Somalia for? But they're ripping off our country at a level that few people have been able to see before. That's about the only thing. You talk about competence. We have Ilhan Omar, who does nothing but complain about our country and our Constitution. And she comes from a country with practically no country. It's devastated, it's crime-ridden, it's a mess, it's a disgrace. And we took their people at a tremendous... We're not taking their people anymore. We're not taking their people. And we're getting a lot of their people out because they're nothing but trouble.
Hey folks, Chuck Holton here. Thanks for watching The Hot Zone. Let me walk you through something the national press barely even whispered about this week. Meanwhile, American special operators were out there in the dark doing the kind of work that never trends on social media, never gets a headline, but absolutely shapes the world we wake up in. Just after 2 in the morning, November 25th, U.S. Special Operations Forces flew deep into the mountains of Puntland in northern Somalia. And when I say deep, I don't mean a quick hop over the border. I'm talking about a pitch black valley in the Kal-Miskad range, jagged rocks everywhere, no moonlight, no ambient glow from a city over the horizon, nothing. Just darkness and a whole lot of wind. 10 American helicopters came in low, Chinooks, carrying operators from the Rangers, most likely, maybe some Navy SEALs, maybe even some Delta Force. They had Apaches overhead, and listen, if you've ever stood under a Chinook at night, you know the sound. It's like a freight train ripping through the sky. These guys were loaded with American operators and backed by a large contingent of Puntland counterterrorism forces. These Somali troops aren't rent-a-rifle militias. They're trained with our guys, and they have been so for years. They know the mountains, they know the enemy, and they're fearless in this kind of terrain. Now, their target was a major ISIS Somalia cave complex called Habur Bajuki, a fortified hideout that's been one of the main refuges for ISIS fighters pushed out of Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Morocco, the Sahel, and everywhere else the so-called caliphate collapsed. Intel there estimated about 100 to maybe 150 fighters inside, including foreign jihadists, instructors, logistics guys, bomb makers, and recruiters. They were armed to the teeth. AK-47s, machine guns, RPGs, explosives. They rigged the tunnels with traps, choke points, and fallback chambers, everything. The operators hit the ground, spread out, and immediately moved toward those tunnel entrances. This is the kind of fighting that makes even hardened veterans sweat. It's cave warfare. Zero light, no room to maneuver. Night vision doesn't even work unless you have IR illuminators. Every step could be a drop-off or a pressure plate. Sound bounces everywhere, and so do the bullets. So you can't always tell where the gunfire is coming from. The operators pushed in anyway. They spent hours fighting those ISIS bad guys, and they threw grenades into barricaded rooms. They had short-range firefights in tunnels where muzzle flashes light up the dust in front of your face. And they just cleared one chamber after another after another. And by the time it was done, somewhere between 20 and 40 ISIS fighters were dead, including several senior leaders, guys who handled logistics, financing, foreign fighter pipelines. 10 militants were captured alive. And the intelligence haul was big. Documents, maps, internal communications, weapons, explosive stockpiles, even navigation gear tied to a Moroccan courier. A lot of that intel points to cross-border networks. Somalia connecting to Nigeria's Boko Haram, ISIS West Africa, and further into Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mozambique. And not a single American was injured or killed. Not one Puntland partner was lost. And because of where this took place, up in the high mountain terrain miles from any village, there were no civilian casualties either. So for once, it was a clean assault in a dirty world. Now, here's where we need to slow down a little bit, because raids like this don't happen in a vacuum. They're not just one more strike on the bad guys. These groups, ISIS, Somalia, Al-Shabaab, ISIS West Africa, Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam, Wal Muslimin, which is known as JNIM, and several others across the Sahel, are the engines behind a wave of genocidal violence that's tearing through Africa right now. It's not a figure of speech. That's not me being dramatic. It's a documented, measured, and massive genocidal problem. All across Africa, Christians are being hunted. Entire communities are being wiped out. Villages are torched. Churches are burned. Pastors assassinated. Women and girls are being kidnapped. Boys are forced into militias. Millions of people have been displaced, and the numbers coming out of Africa over the last 5 years barely hit the American news feeds at all. As they say, no Jews, no news. That means they can't blame it on Israel, so they're not going to, even report on it. Now, we hear more about celebrity divorces in the United States than we do about the worst slaughter of Christians in the modern era. Africa has around 700 million Christians. That's almost twice the number in North America and Europe combined. And in the last 5 years alone, hundreds of thousands of them have been killed. They've been displaced in their millions. They've been targeted in religiously motivated violence all across the Sahel. In Ethiopia, where Christianity dates back to the 4th century, believers are caught between ethnic militias, government crackdowns, Islamists, and even local extremists. Tens of thousands of people have died across Amhara, Tigray, Oromia, and elsewhere just in the last year. Christian communities, some of the oldest on earth, have been attacked by mobs and militias. Their churches have been torched, and their worshipers have been murdered. In Somalia, being a Christian isn't just unsafe, it's a death sentence. Converts get killed by Al-Shabaab or by their own families. You don't go to church in Somalia, you whisper your faith in secret and hope that nobody hears. Now, none of this is fringe. None of it's random. It's coordinated, ideological, and the death toll is staggering. Depending on which organization you use, the total number of Christians killed, disappeared, or displaced from jihadist and extremist violence across Africa in the last decade runs anywhere from 150,000 to 350,000. And honestly, estimates could go even higher when you include unreported village massacres, which happen all the time in remote areas where journalists and aid groups can't safely go. And remember, this isn't happening in a corner of the continent. It stretches from Somalia to Sudan, down through South Sudan, across Ethiopia, sweeping west into Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and dropping south into Nigeria, Cameroon, Mozambique, and the Congo Basin. So when U.S. operators storm a cave in Somalia and kill or capture leaders from ISIS Somalia, they're not just taking out guys who might someday attack Americans. They're weakening the networks behind the worst Christian persecution in the world right now. They're directly saving the lives of people who would otherwise be slaughtered in their homes for simply being who they are. Now, here's where the story takes a hard turn, and the bitter irony comes in for those of you who pay taxes in America. While our special operators were crawling through pitch black tunnels in Somalia, doing extremely dangerous work for very little recognition, another operation was quietly unraveling in the United States. And the target wasn't terrorists in caves. It was a massive welfare fraud ring in Minnesota, one of the biggest in U.S. history. And according to prosecutors and investigators, some of that stolen money, welfare money, Medicaid money, money meant for children with developmental needs, was sent overseas through Somali-linked Hawala networks. And once it reached Somalia, well, a portion of it went straight into the pockets of none other than al-Shabaab, the same group our troops are risking their lives to fight. Here's what the investigators found. Minnesota's Medicaid autism therapy program absolutely exploded in size. Billing went from manageable to insane. It went from like $3 million to hundreds of millions of dollars in just a few years. Autism centers started popping up everywhere in Minnesota, over 300 of them, many of them run by newly arrived or recently settled Somali Americans. And as it turns out, prosecutors say a significant number of those centers were fake. Kids with no autism diagnosis suddenly were receiving hours of billed therapy a day, parents allegedly being paid kickbacks out of that, $300, $800, $1,500 per month per child paid under the table to keep the fraud scheme running. Every fraudulent claim meant more taxpayer money out the door. And that's only one ring. During COVID, that organization known as Feeding Our Future, which was a nonprofit meant to feed low-income children, filed fraudulent claims worth around $300 million with fake meal programs, fake attendance lists, fake receipts. Over 50 people have already been convicted or pleaded guilty. And similar fraud spread into housing assistance, daycare programs, and mental health support. Now, according to investigators, the combined fraud across Minnesota's social services may have hit the billions, not millions, but billions with a B. Now, here's the kicker. That money didn't stay local. A huge portion of it was routed overseas through these Hawala networks. You go into a store in Minneapolis, hand someone $10,000, someone in Somalia or Kenya picks up the phone, gets the number, they pay the equivalent amount on the other end, and so no bank wires, no paper trail, just it's a trust network that pays in cash. And al-Shabaab taxes Hawala transfers inside Somalia. Sometimes it's extortion, sometimes it's just sort of, mandatory, as they say. But either way, the jihadists get their cut. Former terrorism investigators who worked Somali cases say that once welfare money enters the Hawala ecosystem in Minneapolis, it goes to Somalia and al-Shabaab reliably takes a piece of it. So think this through. American taxpayers fund welfare programs. Fraudsters steal that money from the welfare program and send it overseas. Jihadist groups then take a cut. That same group plants IEDs in Puntland. That same group trains fighters. That same group murders Christians across East Africa. And then American taxpayers pay again to send U.S. Special Forces to go fight those guys. We're paying for both sides of the war. Welcome to America. That's how it works. It's hard to imagine a system that's more broken than that. And of course, the media doesn't want to talk about it because it's politically uncomfortable. It complicates their tidy narratives. It requires admitting that corruption exists inside the United States, not just over there. It forces us to confront how easily our systems get exploited and how quickly that exploitation turns deadly for innocent people on another continent. I know it makes you as sick as it does me as an American Christian to think that my tax dollars are making their way to Africa and paying to fund organizations that are killing my Christian brothers and sisters on the ground over there. But if we don't talk about it, nothing changes. The fraud continues. The terror networks keep receiving money, the killings go on, and our troops keep flying halfway across the world to maybe lose their lives fighting enemies that are partially financed by our own government's failures. This is the full picture. A raid in Somalia that actually saves lives. A continent where Christians are being slaughtered in staggering numbers. And a welfare system in Minnesota that, through fraud, corruption, and the incompetence of their governor, helped to fund the very monsters our operators are fighting in those mountains. You deserve to know that. And the people dying on both sides of this deserve better. Thank you for watching. I appreciate all of you. Please go to chuckholton.com and subscribe if you want to get more content like this and find the other reporting that I do for networks like Newsmax and the Christian Broadcasting Network. I will have a lot more coming for you in the coming year, so stay tuned. God bless you. See you later.
The Canadian publication Globe and Mail has published eyewitness accounts of Somali soldiers involved in mass killings in Eritrea. In 2020, reports of Somali troops training in Eritrea made headlines. Their whereabouts raised concern, as parents of recruits were told they would be trained in Qatar or Turkey. Last year, reports they had been deployed to Tigray worried many. There have been many allegations that Eritrean troops have murdered civilians in Tigray. But the new revelations could have repercussions from Mogadishu to New York and even The Hague. From the Globe and Mail. The Globe and Mail has obtained eyewitness accounts of Somali troops embedded with Eritrean forces in Tigray in the early months of the war. The new evidence raises disturbing questions about a covert military alliance between Ethiopia, Eritrea, and Somalia that has inflicted death and destruction on the rebellious Tigray region in northern Ethiopia. For Somalis, it certainly raises other disturbing questions, like who were the Somali soldiers taking orders from? What Somali authorities knew about their deployment to Tigray? Where are these soldiers now? Will they be prosecuted for war crimes? One eyewitness described Tigrayans being slaughtered like chickens. The same man identified monks and priests among the victims of the massacre he saw. He said many had been decapitated, an act often associated with Al-Shabaab and Al-Qaeda. Current and former Ethiopian officials told the Canadian newspaper that up to 10,000 Somali troops were deployed to Tigray.
በተወካዮች ምክር ቤቱ የአፍሪካ ጉዳዮች ንዑስ ኮሚቴ ሊቀመንበሯ ካረን ባስ የተመራ የዩናይትድ ስቴትስ ኮንግረስ አባላት ልኡካን ቡድን በሳምንቱ መጨረሻ ኤርትራን ጎብኝቷል። ከ14 ዓመታት በኋላ የመጀመሪያ በሆነው የኮንግረስ አባላት የኤርትራ ጉብኝት ከኮንግረስ ወመን ካረን ባስ ጋር ወደ አስመራ የተጓዙት አዲስ ተመራጮቹ የምክር ቤቱ አባላት ኢልሃን ኦማር እና ጆ ወይም ዮሴፍ ንጉሴ ናቸው። በኤርትራ የዩናይትድ ስቴትስ ኤምባሲ በወጣ መረጃ መሰረት አዳዲሶቹ የምክር ቤቱ አባላት ሁለቱ ማለትም ኢልሃንና ጆ ንጉሴ የመጀመሪያ ይፋ የውጭ ሀገር ጉብኝታቸው ኤርትራ እንድትሆን ምርጫቸው ባደረጉት መሰረት ነው የተጓዙት። የልኡካን ቡድኑ ከኤርትራ የውጭ ጉዳይ ሚኒስትር ኦስማን ሳልህ ከፕሬዝዳንታዊ አማካሪው የማነ ገብረአብና ከኢኮኖሚ ጉዳዮች ኃላፊው ሀጎስ ገብረ ሕይወት እንዲሁም ከማስታወቂያ ሚኒስትሩ የማነ ገብረ መስቀል ጋር ተገናኙ።
Part of our bread and butter. Ilhan Omar catching heat on Twitter for suggesting that politicians were being forced to pledge allegiance to Israel. New York Congresswoman Nita Lowey responded with this: lawmakers must be able to decide without prejudice or bigotry. I'm saddened that Representative Omar continues to mischaracterize support for Israel. I urge her to retract this statement and engage in further dialogue with the Jewish community on why these comments are so hurtful. Joining us now, Trump campaign advisor Jeff Balaban. Is there room in the Democrat Party for Ilhan Omar and Jewish voters?
I don't think there's room in any reasonable setting for Ilhan Omar and normal people. I mean, Ilhan Omar, the problem isn't, as Nita Lowey says, that she's expressing herself poorly in a manner of debate. The problem is that her beliefs are deeply rooted in hatred and anti-Semitism. She is a hater. I'm going to say it. She is filth. She has no place in the Congress. She has no place on the Foreign Affairs Committee. It's outrageous that Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, the most powerful Democrat in America, appears on Rolling Stone hand in hand with her smiling this week. It's outrageous.
Jeff, that is a very strong word that you used.
Yes. You know? She is a filthy, disgusting hater. So what? She's in Congress. That's the problem. The problem is they have now taken anti-Semitism in its worst, most base, disgusting force, and they've mainstreamed it. And this started when they let Keith Ellison, who was known to be the Nation of Islam spokesman. Nation of Islam is not a normal Islamic group. It is an Islamist, hateful group. It is a group run by Louis Farrakhan, who is a profound hater of Jews, not just of Jews, by the way, of many other people as well. And they mainstreamed it by allowing him to be the deputy chairman of their party. It's got to stop.
Okay, but you used extremely strong language.
Yes.
Insulting language there, insulting to Ms. Omar. You've used it.
Yes.
I don't hear other Jewish members of Congress saying the same thing. They're not making the same demands, and they're not using the same language.
Absolutely correct. They're still playing politics, and that's why people are beginning to say there's no room for Jews in the Democratic Party. I think the older generation, it's beginning to happen a little bit, but more and more younger and younger Jews realize this is ridiculous. They've had this hegemony. There's like this ghetto of Jewish voters in the Democratic Party, and it's built on them trying to exploit the Jews and make the Jews be afraid of the people who are actually their friends. So when you have Chuck Schumer saying that the Republicans are making Israel a partisan issue, what does that mean? It means you have President Trump, who has moved the embassy to Jerusalem, who stands for Israel at the UN against the anti-Semitism of the UN, who has Jewish grandchildren, and their response is they're the ones who are saying we're going to stand now with the ones who hate us. We're the respond ones. We're going to bring them into Congress, put them on the Foreign Affairs Committee when they say that Israel's hypnotized the world, that Jews control the world through money, that the Jews have some kind of we're forcing them to pledge allegiance. This is the oldest form of hatred. It is the most violent and vile form of hatred, and it has no room in public discourse.
Do you want your strong words, and you are an advisor of the Trump 2020 campaign, are you comfortable with using the very, very strong language as an advisor of the Trump campaign?
Listen, I'm using this as a Jew. I'm using it as someone whose family directly feels threatened, but literally threatened, physically threatened in the culture that's being created now by the mainstreaming by the Democrats of these kinds of people. Listen, if someone's going to tell me that they're going to talk to Ilhan Omar and she'll retract it all and apologize, not for her words. She keeps on trying to use these mealy-mouthed apologies for words, and then she doubles down with another anti-Semitic tweet or statement. The problem is she has a belief system, a belief set that Jews are evil and control the world. That has no place in America in public discourse. It's got to go.
So we are sick and tired.
Of what?
Of the president waking up one day and deciding to put forth falsehoods.
What?
And demonize whole communities while the ignorant people that support him then take the lies that he's spreading and use it as a fact.
Deport her. Yesterday, folks. This woman should not be serving in Congress, and moments like this prove why. America has a rich history of immigrants, but serving in the United States Congress requires loyalty to the country, first and foremost, respect for our institutions, and a basic ability to tell the truth rather than weaponize identity politics. And with Ilhan Omar, the pattern is absolutely clear as day. This woman went from a negative net worth to tens of millions of dollars. Her husband currently managing a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund, and a long record of downplaying or outright ignoring corruption inside portions of her own political base.
Hold on, Pete, man. Sorry. Move back. Out the way, bros. Out the way. You're gonna get knocked down.